Stock market update, Thursday, August 8th, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard. So we had U.S. initial jobless claims today that actually came in quite a bit under the forecast. So this is bullish for the market. It's good data. And funny enough, every time I record one of these videos kind of early in the morning, I'm talking about how we don't necessarily have the rally that I think we should be seeing if this is just a minor correction. And I think that stocks are going lower. And then as soon as I end the video, what happens is the market starts to rally. And I've been saying the past couple of days, it's really going to depend on the close because it's really the larger institutions that are going to drive the direction of the market. And a lot of that's going to be determined based on the close. These guys are the ones closing out the markets, where it's usually the smaller retailers that are driving those initial reactions at the opening bell. So, funny enough, the market has been rallying, but then selling off towards the close. So if we look even at yesterday with the S&P and the Nasdaq is typically the one either leading the rally or leading the fall. And if we look yesterday, we started to break down on this channel, this bear flag pattern. We started to break to the downside, and then this got rejected and is now bouncing back towards the top of the channel. If we look at the NASDAQ, it's kind of the same thing here. We started to break to the downside, and then we caught kind of a bid to go up a little bit higher. Now, where do I think this is going? NASDAQ trading up 2.5% right now, really kind of just recovering on the losses from yesterday if we look on the daily. Um, daily we had opened right around a little bit higher actually than where we're at, or that was kind of the high of the day, and then we ended, you know, pretty down on the day for the Nasdaq. S&P kind of the same deal. We had a kind of a tough start to the day, closed red, and now we're kind of catching a bid. So, where do I see this going? I still think we have some room for the downside. We've been seeing these kind of consistent, 2 or 3 days where you catch a little bit of a bid and a rally to the upside, and especially in the opening hours, the opening bell, and then we see this, selling pressure on the close. We see some of these earning misses, or even when earnings are beat, stocks are still getting beat up pretty bad after their earnings. So I don't see a catalyst just yet for this recovery to really start happening. Like if we had to predict right now, are we going to break, this top of this, sell off here, this kind of right shoulder, or are we going to head lower? I have to bet that we're probably headed lower. Same thing here on the S&P. Like if we're looking at this as being a head and shoulder pattern, we've got a left shoulder, a head, and a right shoulder. I do think this pattern has relatively completed if you actually measure the move from the top of the head to the shoulder line down. We have completed the move here on this bottom wick. Same thing for the Nasdaq, but I see more downside to come. I don't think this is the bottom yet. I could be wrong, but if I had to place a wager right now, are we getting back to new highs on this next move, or are we going to lower lows? I've got to place my bets on lower lows here. I think we're going to go a little bit further down before we do actually catch an upside move. So that's just my thoughts. Thoughts don't really matter when it comes to trading the market. I've got a full long portfolio, and then I've got the trading that is usually an inverse strategy to my long portfolio. So when the markets are choppy, I'm making good money on trading, but losing on the long side. And then when markets are in these trend following systems, that's where my trading is probably not going to do super well. I don't like following trends with trading. Um, I like to get in on the reversals and then follow the trend, but I don't like to jump in the middle of a trend. So that's just how the trading is being pretty complementary to my long portfolio. And then looking at the Russell here as well, we're kind of in some key areas of support. So I don't know if this is going to hold or break down further. I'm not going to be surprised again if I end this video and by the close, this thing is potentially selling off again. So that's kind of just my thoughts, my comments. The good economic data, is kind of giving us a little bit of a boost today, but it's just one little subset of data. It doesn't really drive the macro. So It's we're catching a bid today, and gold today is having a nice bid as well. But I would like to potentially catch a short if we get a little bit further up here. Again, not trying to jump in on the trend, but more so to catch the reversal if we do end up being in a bull trap. Because again, if I have to bid on this going lower, 2,400 and less, or breaking all-time highs, I'm gonna bid that this is going to go lower. That would be my bet. Palladium had a really nice recovery here. We ended up not getting in on our position, which is totally fine. And, what are the positions we are looking at right now? So first, let's talk about what we're in. So I added a small position on the yen. I like this pullback that was starting to form a little bit of a base. It's a very small position. It's really a starter position here. We are breaking to the lower side of this channel, so not looking too good right now. We were catching a little bit of a bid last night, and now we're starting to catch a little bit of a sell-off. This thing's trading very similarly to the Swiss. Given when the market's rallying, the Swiss and the yen have been trading lower. So I have moved my stop on the Swiss to get out of some profits here. I don't like how this chart has been breaking down. And I think if we catch a bid a little bit lower here, I'm just going to exit the Swiss and hold the yen. Potentially both of those get stopped out. We've got a good profit that we're in on the Swiss, so we'll just see what happens there. Australian dollar, again, like great time that we get out of this thing because it's really catching a bid to the upside here. Looking like it's starting to reverse. British pound is also catching a strong bid here today. But if we look on the 4 hour or even the daily, I mean, this thing is still just getting beat up. I mean, it has to really break out of this top resistance in order for it to be a breakout to the upside. And right now, it's just it's catching a little bit of a bid from the last couple of days of selling pressure, but this thing still looks very, very bearish to me. And Canadian dollar we're in on, and yeah, I mean, this thing's looking good too. We're looking to probably add to the position if we can get a little bit of a dip, but if not, I may even adjust this up and add to get a more full size position where we're at. I do think that we are headed higher here, and I think it's going to be really tough for us to get stopped out just based on that recent price action and that bottom wick on that massive sell-off day. I mean, I think we'd have to have a really, really bad day in the markets for Canadian dollar to get stopped out at this point. We've had bad economic news in Canada more recently. Specifically, let me pull up the Canadian calendar. So, Canadian calendar here, we had on Tuesday balance of trade. PMI came in, looks a little bit higher. Wednesday PMI was substantially lower. This IB PMI consensus was 60. It came in at 57. That was actually very bearish for the currency. And this unemployment report is going to be really important tomorrow to see what happens with Canadian dollar. So unless that's just a disaster and there's more room to go down, I see Canadian dollar going up here. The PMI came in better, or sorry, worse, and the stock or the currency did better. So that's a pretty good indication of an exhaustion pattern here where we're probably going to head higher, especially because of how short the Canadian dollar has been in the past couple of really months. This thing's been overly shorted by speculators for a long time now. So I think we might catch a bid and hopefully a short squeeze at some point here, but this thing's got a lot of room to go up. And then other positions that we are in are oil. Crude oil. So again, I sent out a trade alert to some friends here that listen to the channel, and I said buy gasoline. So I believe it is UGA was the ticker that's now catching a nice bid here. So if we just open this up, this was our entry point there for the recommendation on the trade. We're currently trading at 65.7, trading right around here. So yeah, we've caught a good little like 2% move so far. We'll see if that continues, but that tracks similarly to slash RB here, gasoline futures, which is catching a really nice bid here. So, and I'm in on crude oil, which is up actually from $73 to $76. So a nice 300-point profit there from where we got in. So yeah, those are the positions right now. We are short the pound still. We're long the Swiss. We're long the yen, long Canadian dollar, and long on oil. And we also missed Bitcoin, which has now ripped up higher to 10% to 60,000. We were trying to get in around 54.5. It pulled back to about 54.8. before taking off this morning. So, we live and we learn. We had kind of a really low entry point for a limit order, and it didn't get filled, so that's fine. Same with palladium. We live and we learn. We could have probably gotten in on that position at 8:30, but we wanted to wait until it would drop a little lower because there was still a risk of it dipping further than 8:13, which was the low. But again, we live and we learn. We don't get every trade. There's always another trade, so we're not going to chase. We'll wait for Bitcoin to see how things play out. 64,000 has really been a magnet of a price, so that may be resistance that we get rejected off of. Not really sure. We'll find out. Really, a lot of this is dependent on the markets and how the markets are going to move here. Is the Nasdaq going to continue to rip and recover, or are we going to break down lower in this flag pattern? This is really a bear flag, so we're probably headed lower, is my bet, but time will tell. And gold will potentially look at a short. So I've got my positions here. New Zealand dollar, we might look at if we get a little bit lower. We're looking at a US dollar short. This is the only other thing that I do want to highlight because I actually found something of interest on US dollar that I'll just quickly pull up here on TradingView. So I could just quickly draw a channel. So go on the daily. To me, this looks like a head and shoulders, and this looks like we're breaking to the lower part of the channel. So we've got a head, shoulder, right shoulder. We've got our neckline, and we broke below that, and now we are retracing to the neckline before the next leg of the lower move. So I see this retesting to potentially 103.5 before this thing sells off further. That's my speculation. We'll see if we get the fill on the order. We have an order in to go short on the US dollar. If we look at here, we've got a fill to go short. It's a little bit higher. It's up actually at one of these resistance lines that I've identified. So yeah, we'll see if we catch that. And outside of those positions, nat gas is ripping, so no entry there. And then gold, we're still waiting on. So yeah, that's what we're looking at. And we will talk again Friday, where we've got some interesting economic reports coming out. That includes, when we look at the US calendar, actually, US has nothing tomorrow, so it's really just going to be that Canadian unemployment report. So that'll be the big news. We'll see if we catch a bid on Canadian dollar, add to the position or not. And yeah, we'll talk tomorrow. Thanks.